And joining us live from Washington, D.C. is geopolitical advisor and strategist Rina Shah. Rina, good to see you. What are you going to be listening for during Trump's speech tonight?
Well, I know that he's going to be trying to claim many accomplishments in this first year. He's going to be touting wins like border crackdowns and tax tweaks. So I'm definitely listening to how he will phrase those. But let's be real here. I think the negative migration sounds flashy here, but it's mostly self-deportations that we've had from these United States out of fear, not out of Trump's policy genius. So I think what, again, I'm listening for is how he phrases all this. On the economic front, too, that's important to me. With the GDP hitting some 4.3% last quarter, sure, but the full year growth was just something like 2.2%, and that really lags behind Biden's averages. So Trump will be justified in some claims if you squint your eyes, but it's more smoke than fire, I believe, is what we're going to be getting tonight. I think he's going to be riding market waves while ignoring the everyday squeeze on American families. And in general, these wins are short-term highs. He's going to, again, really talk about them. But like I said, we're not looking at something long-term here, because what he's attempting to try to do is mask a lot of the chaos in his administration, like how his deportations are gutting industries without a real fix.
Now, you deal with geopolitical risk in your day-to-day job. With Trump being somewhat unpredictable, some might say, how much importance do you actually place on what Trump will say in this speech? I mean, does it even matter?
Well, look, I'll put it this way. A State of the Union can be a reset button, but for Trump, it's more like a Hail Mary ahead of our consequential November midterm elections. Historically, these speeches really nudge polls a few points short term, but they rarely flip elections. And if you think about President Obama's bumps, those faded fast. With Trump's approval now dipping below some 40% on economy and immigration, tonight might rally his base, but it may also alienate the very important bloc of independents if he starts ranting off script, something he's known to do. I believe in this polarized era, it's less about persuasion and more about turnout. His words could really fire up MAGA voters, but could also mobilize Democrats if he doubles down on divisive stuff like these tariffs. So I'm not expecting miracles here, but midterms hinge on local races, not on one primetime pitch like we'll hear from President Trump tonight.
But is he good, though, for the Republican Party? Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I was reading up on you just before we came to air, and I understand that you're actually a lifelong Republican yourself. And having a president like Donald Trump being the head of the Republican Party, being the head of the country in these very difficult times. You heard Chuck Schumer talking about that he's living in a bubble. He's not really seeing the reality of Americans today. Is he a good or a bad person for his party?
Well, first, I'll start with saying that I was part of a small group of Republicans that was asked to sign an amicus brief on one of the two tariff cases that the Supreme Court heard and rendered a decision on just this past Friday. We won at the Supreme Court. And I joined those Republicans, many lifelong, much older than me, who served in administrations such as the Reagan administration, the Nixon administration. These are people that were very concerned about the tariffs. I was concerned about the fact that it was an executive overreach. He didn't consult Congress, and Congress abdicated their duty on these tariffs. Tariffs are really a tax on the American consumer. And so that is one way that Trump has really split with longtime Republicans. But if you look at the Republican Party under Trump today, it is more fractured than ever. House Republicans are openly bucking him on, again, tariffs, but also on war powers, even on the Epstein files. And unity was a post-election image mirage, I believe. Now with midterms looming and Trump's lows dragging the party, defections are really rising. And Never Trump folks like me from a decade ago is when I became the first ever Never Trump delegate in the Republican Party. we've been sidelined. But the real divide is actually inside the Republican Party today. It's the moderates versus the MAGA hardliners. And you've got frustration bubbling in. All over. So I think compared to before, it's way worse. Pre-2016, we debated ideas. Now it's loyalty tests. And what no one is really saying here is that Trump's grip is loosening because his wins are not delivering for down ballot Republicans. And so expect more cracks as 2028 whispers begin. And the party begins to realize that survival means evolving beyond one man.
All right, Rina Shah, really good to talk to you and hear your thoughts on tonight's State of the Union.